Hey, Poochie. Hey, what you know? What you know? Dogs and cars, two of the greatest things in the world. Headed up to eastern Nebraska today to look at a collection of, I think, around 150 old cars and trucks. The guy was mainly a tractor collector, but he had a lot of vehicles too, and just was a big graveyard of old vehicles that laid in the woods. Probably wasn't a woods when he parked them there, but after the decades, the trees just grew up. They sat there 40, 50 years. There were some sheds on the property also, and so some of these have been parked indoors for a lot of decades as well. There's a couple Edsels in there, Thunderbird, some old 1930s coupe, and just anything that he was into and liked, he dragged it home. Old motorcycles, you name it, it's there. Now, my understanding is they've been pulling all these out and getting them rode up, so we're gonna stop and take a look. Come here. Hey, come here. So I get out here, and the first thing, I'm greeted by a chocolate lab carrying a transmission clutch disc. Next in the row is a 67, 68 Cadillac. Pretty identical, both years, except your 68 has these marker lights. Car's pretty hammered, but there's probably a few good pieces left on here. See the 68 marker lights there on the sides of the bumper they added. Next, 1958 Chevrolet Brookwood station wagon. Chevrolet wagons used separate names from the other different series, and then like 60, I think 62 is when they switched over to just call them Impala and Bel Air. Brookwood, Parkwood, 59 and 58, they had Nomad wagons, I think, till 61. Thing's getting rusty, but it's savable. I mean, there's not 58 Chevy Wagon around every corner. '53 or 4 Plymouth. Should be a 53 with that grill. 2-door hardtop. This one's got the overdrive transmission. Helpful accessory for back in the day. This is video number 3 of this walk around. The other 2 videos show more of these vehicles. These are ones that I'll be getting to, and then over on the other side there's a whole bunch more that I already did film. Check the other videos out for those. 54 Chevrolet Bel Air 2-door hardtop. Really attractive colors on this one. Yellow and the green. It's pretty rough, but a lot of good parts on this one. Those side moldings are probably $1,000. This one should be 67 Mustang without the side markers. There's a lot of 67 and 8 cars that they carried on, and the side markers really the best and easiest way to tell them apart. A few good parts in here. You've got your AC vents and bucket seats. Definitely parts car, not a builder. 49 or 50 Dodge, 5-window coupe. They also built 3-window coupes. That's a neat car. Coronet. 1958 Biscayne. Guy kind of had a thing for 58 Chevys. There's quite a few of them out here. When they rode these up, they just kind of did it as they came out of the trees. This whole mess of cars was back in the woods back there. Part of this was the woods that they cut down. It's a guy's whole car collection. He had a lot of tractors. This is actually the third auction just of the vehicles. First two auctions were just tractors. They pulled these out of the woods to sell. So they didn't line up all the 58s together. There's at least 4 or 5 of them out here. 1960 Ford Starliner, 2-door hardtop. That was a neat looking car with the black. Kind of an odd design, but it was not too far away from what everybody else was building at the time. 1948, 9, or 50 Dodge truck. These old Dodges, you could get the base model, which had a black painted bed, and then the deluxe models had body color cab and a body color bed. So your value conscious buyers who didn't want to appear cheap, they could order the base model truck with a black cab, and the average person wouldn't tell the difference as much as if you ordered, say, a red cab with the black bed on the cheap model. If that makes sense. This one's a 5-window cab, but the rest of it's really, really plain old truck. These things got hammered before they got here, and then a lot of them had trees fall on them in the woods, but at least they survived. 58 Ford 2-door post. That's kind of a neat car. Pretty rough though. Plain vanilla white. Another 49 Ford. This one looks like it was the literal crash and burn. See how badly the metal just rots and corrodes after it's burned. Just gets so thin, and something about that heat makes the corrosion just amplify. It's burned out Hulk. It is 8BA flathead. Probably a good chance it's seized. 57 Chevy, Bel Air wagon. Even though it's missing pieces, that car could potentially have hope to be resurrected. Catch the firewall trim tag real quick on that one. St. Louis car, easy eye tint. 63 Galaxy. Pretty rough, but there's parts on there. This car here, 60 Chevy Impala two-door hardtop. White with the black coves and a red interior. Really attractive old car. This crease is fixable. It's not too bad. You could kick most of it out and smooth the ends and get her back. Got pretty bad quarter panel on this side. Little Rambler American wagon. This thing's pretty hammered. A lot of these you just wonder what happened to them. I always thought Ramblers were kind of neat because they had this extruded aluminum door frame. Pretty smart from a manufacturing standpoint. Make it look attractive and very durable, hard metal. And you wouldn't have the extra cost for tooling, trim molding. Little sliding rear windows. Pretty basic car. You can see the similarity to the Metropolitan in the dash. 61 bubble top. I mean, this car is really buildable. Need pretty much all the metal work, but there's nothing about it that's beyond resurrection. All just depends on the market value of the car. And the market value on these bubble tops is really strong, which makes it worthwhile for somebody to put in the effort, put in the work, and make it good car again. But it isn't easy. Restoration takes an awful lot when they're this bad. So you got the quarter panel damage from the tree. Not the best, but not something that can't be overcome. Pretty basic inside, automatic car. Not too torn up by man, but definitely taking its licks from Mother Nature. 60 Ford two-door post. Couple of these out here. You wonder if some of these he ended up with several because he really liked them, or if it was just the way it went for how they came to him. 1965 Ford Custom. This one's black, which is pretty neat look for any car, especially when it patinas down real nice like that. Four-door post. Like these customs, they give off kind of a bit of a taxi cab or a police car vibe, especially painted this color. This one's kind of unique because it is stick car. See the pedals there, and Dash has kind of been redone by Mother Nature. I think. Yeah, they just took the shifter lever out. That was pretty common on these. The shifters would get sloppy on the column, and so you'd buy a Hurst Indy changeover and hack a hole in the floor and move it to the floor. Ford LTD coupe. Believe this one's 74. 73 and 4 are pretty similar. Vinyl top car. Chevy El Camino. These are good kid cars. Find a high schooler that wants to learn auto mechanics, and they're basic enough that kind of hard to screw them up, and simple and available enough to find pieces for that won't break the bank. You can see from here the rust in the frame rails, which isn't a deal breaker on a G-body because they do make the rear sections, and that's really the only spot they rust in. They make lower bed panels, kind of one of those that could go either way. Be something that could be resurrected if a guy wanted to put in the work, but it'd be quite a bit of work. Then your 57, another Bel Air. It's kind of been parted on. '58 Fairlane 500. Two different body styles on these cars. You had the one with the quarter window in the back door, and then you had another one where the quarter window was actually in the body. And there was a third four-door hardtop. But they did build two different four-door post bodies, different rear doors and rear roof treatments. 60 Star Chief. See a lot more 60 Pontiacs than 59s, and I'm not really sure why that is. It's almost 2 to 1, and for some reason almost all Pontiacs have factory air. This one actually is not an AC car, which is a little odd, but almost every 60 Pontiac I've ever had has factory air. I believe in the catalog there's two different grills. The air grill was kind of just wider fins for better airflow. They're really hard to tell apart unless you're looking at two of them together. Neatest part of the 60 Pontiac is the double barrel taillights. I mean, it's just the look you can't duplicate. You know it's a 60 Pontiac when you see those. 62 Buick Special, two-door post. Pretty similar to the 61s, but they changed the grills. Lincoln 68 or 9, two-door hardtop. 68 I think was the last year of the old style engine, and then 69 they went to the 460. That's kind of a neat car. Pretty rough. I always think of Animal House whenever I see one of these. I think that one was an older, early 60s four-door. 54 Chevrolet. This one's a 210. Had the single side trim with the stainless around the windows. The 150 was all rubber and really no side trim to speak of. 77 Lincoln Mark V with a factory sunroof. Super cool. Half vinyl top with the sunroof cars. Pretty basic inside. Not too terribly different from a Thunderbird or a Galaxy. He's kind of had the little odd separate hardtop vent windows. I think that was only a Ford thing. 62 Bel Air 4-door post, which all the Bel Airs are post cars. I think still in 61 they built Bel Air hardtops, but I think that was the end. I know in 60 they did. A lot of good parts on this one. You can see the emblems in the side trim are Bel Air only. Got the steering wheel. This one actually has a clock. Most of these were clock delete. Pretty attractive color combo on that, blue and white. 235 lost its head long ago. Somebody carefully threaded the bolts in and they got all covered in moss. 63 or 4 maybe Ford truck. Base model, painted grille, painted bumper. Originally were white, somebody blacked them out. Yuck. Wallstrom Ford, Chadron, Nebraska. Pretty basic trucks. Most of these got worked to death. This one actually looks halfway savable if a guy was real dedicated. 56 Ford. Really neat car. It's got the salmon color with the white, two-toned. 56 was the first year. Basically everybody brought out a 4-door hardtop in 56. All the Mopar cars, the Fords, all the GM cars. That one's got the little bumper exhaust tips. I mean, it's really pretty snazzy car for 56. Over in that very first row that I shot, I did show a 56 Pontiac 4-door hardtop. Barely see the hood of it there. That's in that very first video, 56 4-door hardtop. Super hard to get this to shoot and see, but that's over there. 56 Ford Fairlane station wagon. Kind of like these cars are separated at birth and then reunited here. Forest of cars. That's a cool car. Thing really ought to be fixed. Little Porsche. Two of them actually. This is the start of the kind of basic ones that weren't like super exotic and real collectible. So they may sell for scrap, who knows. 58 Edsel in salmon pink. Trying to find what model this might be. It doesn't have side badges. Easiest way for me to tell is the hubs, because 5-inch bolt circle is a Corsair or Citation. The 4.5 would have been Ranger or Pacer. This one's really good on the outside. You could save the patina pretty well. One that was stored in the barn. There were a few of these that were in the barn, and then a lot of them just had outdoor, left to fend for themselves in the trees, and they didn't really too well. Whoa. Who would order a salmon pink car with a green interior? That is just wild. I don't know, this thing's like really mousy though. 58 Teletouch. See the wheel rotates and that Teletouch hub stays static. Then they got the little ribbon speedometer, kind of like the Chrysler Astrodome. Ford would have based it off the 54 and 55s. That's a pretty well preserved car, honestly. Thing definitely should be rehabbed and back on the road. Probably some version of MEL engine. Mercury, Edsel, Lincoln. These they kind of did similar to what Buick did. So that's E400, and I think it's like the torque rating. It's kind of a bizarre way to do the nomenclature, and I think only Buick and Edsel were the ones that ever did it, to my knowledge. If you know different, drop a comment. And if you know why, I think it probably was just weird marketing they did to be different, kind of make a funky hook to get people to bite. But they don't do it anymore. This old Lincoln, I think this is like 66 through 68 style. I think that other two-door down the row is the 69. I always have to look them up to tell, but 4-door hardtop. One this rough is either parts car, hopefully not a derby car, but you never know. One this rough, nobody probably would get too mad if you stripped it down and sold the parts to a store and built an Animal House clone. But probably just best to be a parts car. 67 Chevelle, 2-door post, real oddball. A lot of these were 2-door hardtops. Post isn't super common car. A lot of these door latches are stuck. If you ever have a car with stuck door latches, especially a GM car, look back in my old videos. I did a 67 Impala and I show how to get them soaked and freed again. 67 Chevelle is just really unique car because it basically echoes the 67 Impala styling really closely, especially in the front end. This is looking like a 348 truck motor. This one they've had set up for irrigation. Got the weird little pulley on the bell housing. 2-barrel carb. Looks like it was set up for propane. Hit this row real quick. Old Jeep pickup. Somebody's put a Ford box on it. It's kind of bizarre. This old Chevy pickup has the single piece door glass, not the vent windows. So that's the easiest way to identify the years on these. Blue. Has a 235 in it. And it actually probably was swapped in there because these would all been 216s. It is pretty seized. That'd be a great truck to tinker on and get running again. Neat old workhorse. 71, 72 LTD. And 64 Dodge. One of the ugliest cars Dodge ever built. Just a frumpy front end. Carryover windshield posts from 57. And then this bizarre whatever this is on the rear. Hard to love that car, but it is a piece of our country's transportation history, and it has survived well over half a century, so it deserves preservation even if it's just a parts car. It's like a trailer of stuff coming out. This stuff will be auctioned tomorrow, so you can check back on my videos. I'll have a whole rundown of what these old relics bring. Couple Corvairs. These are 61, 2, 3, or 4. Every year they change that little grill molding. It was really easy to tool up for a different stamping die for that and make it a little different just so people could think they were getting a different revision that year. These things are pretty hammered, but maybe that one probably realistically could be brought back. This one, just too much body work. Banged up, rusty mess. Corvairs aren't terribly valuable cars to start with. So it's got to be really nice to justify doing the work. 67 Fairlane, I already kind of shot in that first video, along with the Bug and this Studebaker. There's two old GMCs back in the back row, so you can check back in that first video if for some reason you haven't seen it yet. This is a 48 through 50 Ford F6. That one somebody swapped a Y block into. '73 to 9 Super Cab, Bigfoot blue. 77 to 79 T-Bird. Just kind of neat to think a couple old time capsules like that realistically could have sat next to each other at the dealership, in the service department, maybe even in somebody's garage, his and hers. '63 Galaxy. Yep, there go the chairs. This is a two-door hardtop box top, 390 car, stick, which is pretty neat. Two body styles of hardtop in '63. You had your box top, and then you had the 63.5 fastback. And unfortunately, this one's caught a tree as well, but still could be brought back. Rest of the car's decent enough. Fix the quarter panels. It could be saved. This weird one, four-wheel drive Massey. Guys are saying that when the Massey factory had a fire, they contracted with other outside companies. So that kind of has a bit of the reason to do with the cobbled look. I'm getting down the last little bit of daylight. Kind of waited till this time of day so I wouldn't get weird shadows at dusk, and now gotta maximize the light. Hey Poochie. Hey, what you know? What you know? Dogs and cars, two of the greatest things in the world. '66 Mustang, 4-lug. Wonder if that lavender color is the factory. It's hard to tell, this thing's got so many colors on it. That's more like a red that's faded to pink. Automatic with the console. Wire hubcaps. That was a styling car in its day. And this old rig, half-ton panel truck. I actually had one of these back in the day, and I sold it. The old guy that I sold it to, he was starting to have trouble getting around, and I think he just kind of wanted one last thing to work on. And I was like, you know what? He doesn't have a lot of time on this earth. I still do. I'll find another one. Maybe not this one. But I sold it to him. Just something that he was grateful to have to work on in his last years. I do have a 1-ton or 3/4 ton, I guess, GMC, the long, big one, which I actually really like better than the half-ton. Half-ton's cool. I mean, if you want a little kind of hot rod type of thing, but if you really want one to use, which I do, like that old GMC, hopefully someday I'll get to it. Kind of got a neat little wood divider with the chicken wire. Just always curious about this vocational stuff. These old trucks, like what they used them for, what they hauled in them. This one actually came from California. It's got the 65 Cal plate on it. Old black plate truck. There's kind of like little 4-leaf clover on the other side. It says cleaners. They could have hauled animals in here, being out in farming country. I wouldn't be surprised if they had chickens or something. This one's gotten whacked in the roof. Be a lot of work to get that back right, for me anyway. I do better with rust repair than I do with sheet metal straightening. I'm not a good sheet metal straightener. 51 Chevy 4-door. Decent parts car. 47 Chevy 2-door. That one's got that little deluxe hood ornament on it. Had a plastic insert in the top. Hopefully this is still good footage. I know it's getting dark out here. Believe this is a 30 Chevrolet 2-door. By this point, when the wood's that bad, it's really a parts car. They've got to be something desirable, you know, roadster or coupe or something to really justify all the woodwork, because it's a lot of work to do one. 75 through 79, I think, Lincoln coupe. That's a cool car. Just sat too long, so it's parts now. Another 58. Bunches of them out here. This is the Del Rey. Even though the Del Rey was the cheap car, you still see a lot of them that people two-toned. Maybe it was cheaper to buy two-tone paint on a Del Rey than it was to order up to the Biscayne, but there's so little difference between them that they dropped the Del Rey after 58. 59, the base was the Biscayne. Ford Taurus. Could have been the car that he drove, maybe. Probably just scrap. Another 75 to 9 Lincoln. I really dig these cars. They just have such a pure styling to them. It's like reaching back to the 61, but it's still very 70s design. The knife edge fenders. I looked and looked to find one of these, and I found a 72, which is really a neat one because it has still the pre-safety bumpers, so they have a nice smooth sculpted look to them. I like these with the big chunk bumpers. That's the way they built them. Gotta take them how they come. Factory sunroof car's pretty neat. But they sit this long and realistically just gonna be parts. Sold early 90s Lumina, took a hard hit into something. My uncle had one of these. He worked for Farmers Insurance, and that was his company car. So I always think of him when I see one of these Luminas. And it's just a very utilitarian car, but they're good, durable cars. These make decent compact derby cars, so if anybody in that crowd's here, they might look at them for that. Old Taurus wagon. I shot around one of these at the Pioneer Village. I don't know if they'll auction it next spring with the rest or not. Really iconic cars. I mean, still 35 years old, very modern looking. You turn this car upside down or open the hood and very, very little has changed. So in that sense, it was a good gamble of Ford's that really paid off. This should be 76, 7, 8 Ford wagon. These cars pop up a lot of places, like, I want to say Halloween thinking Michael Myers, but I don't know if that's correct. I've never seen it. And then like Stepford Wives, theirs was wood grain. Reaching even further, Dallas was a Mercury wood grain. And then I want to say the Blues Brothers might have been a green one. So these things pop up. I mean, it was the American bread and butter family mover, grocery getter. Just really big car. Once they brought out the minivans, a lot of these went away. Minivan was more efficient, easier to park, just a little more user-friendly and handy. Kind of two identical wagons. Another 75 678 Ford. Chevrolet beat Ford by 1 year with the Caprice in 77. Chrysler and Ford ran up till 78 before they downsized in 79. And this little Mercury should be a 74. 74 is fairly distinctive, kind of 1 year only. First year of double safety bumpers. And they had this interesting tail light, kind of a full length like waffle pattern deal almost. I always think of Hawaii 5.0 whenever I see one of these 74 Mercuries. So this is the end of my first day here. I'm gonna go camp for the night and sunrise on the forest of cars. On the way out, check back in. Next video will be auction action at the car forest. Come here. Hey, come here.